We'll talk about it. We'll make that decision when we need to. Right now, we're just one step at a time.
What did you like about the plan he presented during the interview process?
Well, number one, I would say is I've had a chance to be around Bobby for a number of years, and that interview has taken place over a number of years, not just one sit down. So, Bobby's always been a highly energetic young coach, comes from a coaching family and a coaching background, and just always impressed with Bobby's curiosity about the game, offensively, defensively as well, obviously, and then he's got a vision for what and how he sees the defense, not only now but also moving forward.
Let's follow up on your defensive staff, some new faces, some younger faces. How much do you think that will have an impact just to get some fresh news?
Well, yeah, anytime you can, continuity is certainly important, but there's some good things that come with some newness as well, to your point, of some new ideas, some, hey, look at what we've done. It has been good. Can it be better, right? And so you always want to go into those meetings with an open mind and a growth mindset of, hey, you've got an outside person's perspective, at least a little bit on, hey, what else is going on out there that you may know of, some of which some of the new coaches are from college as well, so that'll offer another dimension to us.
Sean, kind of along those lines, how do you evaluate, now there's been a couple weeks since the season ended, how do you evaluate your job as a play caller and just your performance throughout the course of the season?
Me specifically? Well, you can always improve. I think that's where you start. You start with yourself and say, hey, what could I have done better? And I thought defensively we performed well overall through managing some through injuries. But so you're always trying to gain 6 inches on every play to make sure, hey, how could I have gotten us a little bit closer to the ball, a little bit closer to the play? So, I'm very confident myself as a play caller, very confident myself as a defensive coach, to your question. And so I'm excited to see where this goes with Bobby and I tied at the hip here.
Sean, the competition committee, how did that come about? Why did you decide that that's something you wanted to be involved in?
How it came about is a better question for the league. I'm not really sure how that gets that soup gets put together every year. But I received a call from Troy Vincent a few weeks ago, and it was actually a text the night before that I saw, and a little bit of me, my heart started going a little bit, because I'm like, hey, what didn't we do right? But the next morning, then we got on the phone, and then he offered the the invitation on joining the committee, and I was honored, number one, and humbled by it, and I just took a minute or two to ask, hey, what does it entail? Because I'm sensitive to spending as much time as I can with our team and the things that revolve around our organization, and we went through that for a few minutes, like I mentioned, and then I decided to accept the invitation. So I'm honored, like I said, and received a great text from Bill Polian a few days ago, and Bill is Bill. He's a legend, right? And so he served on the committee years ago, and the words he used with me were that he felt like were important years ago, I believe are important and make a lot of sense. And he said, be a guardian of the game. And I think that's important, right? It's easy for one to go into these meetings and say, well, this is what's important for the Buffalo Bills, or this is what's important for my team, if you're Mike Tomlin or whoever else is in there. But that's not the job. The job description is to do what's best for the overall league and growing the game and growing it the right way.
How did today go?
It was good. It was about 7 hours of meetings. Yesterday, about 5 hours probably, and then we had our first set of meetings, I think it was about a week or two ago. So it's been very interesting, very educational at the same time, and getting a chance just to be around the different parties that come in there, the different groups, whether it be health and safety or officiating or what have you.
Has anything surprised you about it so far?
I'm learning the cadence, right? Learning the cadence, learning where I fit in, and when to speak and when to listen. And so I think that's just part of the first kind of the rookie campaign at this point.
Sean, Micah Hyde told you what his plan
No.
But
No.
if he does decide to play, how much of a priority is it to make sure he's not?
Well, Micah, I think just say the word Micah around Buffalo and people smile, right? He's had a huge impact on our organization, a huge impact on the community. He's a class act around not only Buffalo, but the NFL. I can't say enough good things about Micah Hyde.
Sean, going back to the competition committee, this group discussed push plays for the push sheet for the upcoming season, and where just regardless, what is your stance on this?
Yeah, we haven't visited that specific topic to this point. My stance on the push play is that whatever the league decides is the best thing, that's what we'll do. So I've just been one over the years, not just because I'm on the committee now, but I'll voice my opinion on it and what I feel like is best for the game, and then we adjust as needed.
Sean, can you give us an update on Tre'Davious and Matt Milano?
Yeah, both doing well, both working extremely hard. I mean, I see those guys almost every day, sometimes more than others, just based on their rehab schedule or their doctor's appointments. Sometimes they fly out for a doctor's appointment elsewhere, but those two have both been working really hard.
They're both rehabbing in Buffalo primarily?
When I left, Trey was Matt wasn't at the current time, but I've been in and out, obviously. So.
Do you know any sort of like timeline or hope as to when Tre'Davious could get to a spot where you can evaluate him?
No, I don't. So just it's more of like we're in the cadence right now, myself and Nate with, as well as Brandon with, hey, check in 1 week, 1 week, get a new update the next week, and how things are going, how they're both trending, or any player for that matter that's had off-season surgery or what have you.
Sean, the division came down to the last game of the season this past year's level of competitiveness in the AFC East has been taken up a notch. What do you think Rodgers coming back next year, the division's going to look like?
Yeah, it's high-level competition, right? It's high-level football, and I think that's exciting for the NFL. It's exciting for fans. We've been able to win it the last 4 seasons, and I think that says a lot as well. This season came down to the last game, which was, I think, a great game to watch if you were a fan from an exciting standpoint. And so, the league continues to evolve and grow. The AFC East, the AFC overall. We know what Kansas City has done. We know what Cincinnati and some of the other teams are capable of doing as well. So, again, extremely proud of what we've been able to accomplish to this point with more work to be done.
With Joe Brady getting the full offseason as that coordinator spot, what kind of stamp do you think he'll put on
It's like anything else. When you take over, and you take over on a 7, 8 game, number count or game count, whatever it was, you're able to do some things, but you're not really able to do everything you want to do. And so I think you probably saw some of what Joe wants to do, but not all of it naturally. And so we were able to add an offensive staff member with Ronald Curry there that Joe has a history with as well. So that comfort level was important for Joe and for us moving forward here. And so I'm excited about that, and excited to see also some of the evolution of our offense this offseason, to your point, and not also though getting too far away from what's been good for us and what's been good for Josh.
When you were playing at Ordinary, how aware were you of Ronald Curry at Hampton High?
I was pretty aware of RC. That's a lot of what you heard about, right? And you hear about a lot of the talent that's over in that Tidewater, Chesapeake area, and he was certainly a big name. My roommate was from that area as well and played at Deep Creek, which is near Hampton.
Did you watch the Super Bowl, and what was your takeaway after you saw Patrick Mahomes great?
Yeah, I did watch the Super Bowl. As hard as it is to watch it, I think it's a necessary evil because you can learn from it. And listen, as much as you want, we want to be there. I want to be there. Our fans want us to be there. You have to respect what they've been able to accomplish and how they've been able to do it. High level of play, high level of leadership, high level of execution.
What did you learn from that?
I don't think you can boil it down to just one word or one sentence, but just what I shared just with you with the execution, the level of play, the level of just competitiveness overall, the level of leadership. I've been mostly impressed with those three areas.
When Patrick Mahomes gets the ball in overtime, you go, seen how this plays out.
Well, I mean,
Know what he's able to do in crunch time.
I think everyone around the league now knows that, right? We've experienced that. We've also been on the winning side of that too. So he's as tough as there is out there, whether it is overtime or the start of the game. He's as good as there is, and that's why he's winning the Super Bowls he has.
Sean, at the end of the year, you and Brandon both talked about explosive plays. I know you talked about some data that suggests explosive plays on drives, player acquisition. Now the evaluation process has been ongoing. Are you still in the mindset that that's an area you'd like to kind of focus on and improve at least?
Offensively with explosive
Yes,
plays?
yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to be able to get the ball either thrown down the field or you got to be able to complete it short and then have it run down the field, whether it's via rack or throwing the ball down the field and completing it on deeper passes. So, you know, the game's changing a little bit too, though, with defenses going to more split safety looks and more zone versus man, and so it's kind of forcing quarterbacks or offenses to be a little bit more patient at times. Excuse me. So the value of rack is important then, right? If you're gonna throw it short, you better be able to take it from 5 to 15 or to 50, and I think that's an important piece as well.
Sean, when you get a safety in a meeting this week, how do you challenge him about his football IQ and how he fits into what you guys do?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I feel like overall, you know, playing the safety position is different than playing any other position on the field. Not only do you have to be able to play the position, but you've got to be able to lead and communicate back there and be able to see the game, big picture, and then be able to cut it down to a smaller picture. And that doesn't always occur at all those other positions on defense. So it's, for us, you know, it's a position I've played and have experience coaching, and I think that's one of the values of Bobby as well. He's coached it at a high level, and so being around the great safeties we've been fortunate to be around as coaches, Micah, Jordan, Brian Dawkins, over the years, Quentin Michael Lewis, I mean, the list goes on, right? Kurt Coleman, I mean, I'm going to leave some out that I'll probably get a text that I didn't mention here, but you're fortunate when you're a coach and being able to coach those players because you learn things from them as well that you carry forward in your career.
Sean, I'm Bobby. You were a first-time defensive coordinator at one point. During these conversations, how excited is he at the proposition of maybe calling the defense? And what characteristics has he shown you that when that day comes where you give him that responsibility, he's shown you that he can do it?
Well, number one, you've got to be able to think on your feet. You don't have the ability to sit at home and, hey, rewind that play and then make a call, right? So you've got to be able to quickly process down and distance, personnel, situation in the game, what has happened before that play, what could happen after that, what you're setting up perhaps. So there's a lot of things that go into it. There's a lot of position coaches that have not gone on to become great coordinators because of the inability to process all that information at a moment's notice. So it's an acquired trait, it's you either have it or you can acquire a little bit of it. But I think Bobby's got it, but it remains to be seen to some extent as well. It's a projection on my part. But I love the fact that Bobby has the ability to see the game in 2 dimensions, right? 2 and 3 dimensions, because that's an important piece of this. He's coached 2 levels of the defense. The only one he hasn't coached is the defensive line, but yet when you work with the linebacker position, you're working in some ways with the defensive line with run fits and working off of stunts and games up front. So I think Bobby's done a good job of that, and I'm excited to watch him grow into this coordinator role as well.
John, if you do have to bring in and develop a new safety, how important is it to have Jordan there with this institutional knowledge of this team over the last 7 years?
Yeah, institutional is a great word, Joe. Like Micah, Jordan has been just instrumental in our success and the growth of our organization, our team, our defense. Can't say enough good about Jordan, just like Micah. And usually when I say one, the other one comes to mind as well. And so I think Jordan, for us, has been a player, among other things, that probably to me that stand out. His toughness his mental and physical toughness is what, to me, rises to the surface when he's out there for us versus when he's not, in terms of the toughness of our overall defense. I think Jordan does a great job of driving that.
I know it benefited your team in the playoff game, but do you think the touchback rule was too punitive, fumble through the end zone, too punitive to an offense? There's been a lot of talk about that. Or do you think
Yeah.
it's,
Well, I'm on the committee now, so I can't really say. No, it's certainly benefited us in that situation, but it is something that you try and teach and you try and coach it as well. Hey, if you're going to reach, you're only reaching on fourth down, right? And so I'm not suggesting that that's easy, but that's the coaching point for our players, and so again, we'll do what's best for the game, and we'll see how all that works itself out.
How do you balance the success that you've had over the last 5 to 7 years with letting your new coordinators kind of put their own stamp on the offense?
Yeah, that's important. These new ideas, these fresh ideas, and kind of a new set of eyes, a little bit, at least from a different angle. I think that's important, but also trying to develop them, sharing some things that some mistakes that I've made over the years as a coordinator, and some areas that I think are important to developing as a coordinator. So it's all part of developing staff and developing, in this case, our play callers.
Brandon had mentioned at one point he was very excited to see Joe Brady and Bobby Babbitt go against each other in training camp. What do you think that'll be like, just kind of the energy they both bring?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. They're both fiery guys, which I love. I love that about them, because I think what happens is when you're a certain way, that personality bleeds into your unit, right, that you're coaching, or your position that you're coaching. And so I want our players to have that fire. I want our players to have that type of personality, that energy daily. And Joe has that. Right when Joe took over, it was like he was in my office, bang, he was out, and he was going to work. And Bobby's the same.
You've been in these meetings all these years with prospects this week at the Combine. Is there anything that you take specifically, maybe even as recently as Dalton and Osiris, two guys that came in and had a big role for you early on, from those interviews this week that can kind of project somebody that can come in and help you right away?
Well, I think as a scouting staff, and Brandon does a good job, but even for me as a coach, right, you try and learn from your successes, right? Dalton in this case, Cybo, and you say, hey, what was it about them, right, and their DNA that allowed them to come in and play early, but also play well? And then you try and not, no two people are exactly alike, but you try and use some of those traits and say, hey, this is what we need going forward, right? Because it is important. It's a young man's game right now with the amount of rookies that are playing impactful snaps around the league, not just for us, but around the league. And we need our young players to come in and be ready to play and able to play. And so I think that's an important piece of it for us here, that these interviews, we really get to the bottom of who these players are, not just as players, but who they are as people, and their DNA.
Sean, with Eric Washington going to Chicago, do you anticipate anybody getting that assistant head coach title, or who kind of absorbs those duties?
Yeah, not yet. Open to it at some point, but I thought Coach Washington did a great job, and happy for him and his family. He's going to do a great job in Chicago, and that's part of it, right? And so, but not yet.
Hey, Sean, obviously this team's been knocking on the door for several years now. Does it get tougher to turn the page after a season, or is it do what you did down the stretch and try to build on that?
Yeah, it's never easy to lose your last game of the season, right? And when you're in the playoffs, you're at a risk of doing that, right? So unless you win the Super Bowl, there's only one team that does. So you try and keep perspective is the thing I've tried to do, tried to learn the older I've gotten. And I think perspective is important. But then also, again, you go back and you look and you take an objective approach to everything, and you turn over every stone to make sure that we're doing things right. We're putting ourselves in the best position, coaching-wise, personnel-wise, training-wise, weightlifting-wise, whatever it is to win and win the world championship. That's what we're here for.
For that outside perspective, are there other people you turn to, or does that have to mostly come internally?
Outside perspective.
On the season ending, like
Well, I mean, most of it's internal because that's where the most of the conversations take place. When you're saying, go ahead.
I mean, like you personally, internally. Like,
For myself?
Like, is it a kind of in your head, or are you like talking to other people about it? Maybe
In
this made no sense.
Well, I mean, you start with yourself and you say, hey, what can I do better? What did I do well? And you ask every coach to do that and every player to do that. And then you try and look back holistically at, hey, what went well, right? What didn't go well? What do we need to change? Or what was just kind of random occurrence, right? And so, then you do look outside and you say, hey, who's out there that's gone through maybe some of what we're going through? You use other professional sports coaches in this case, right? Of, hey, maybe they've been in our shoes, maybe they've been in my shoes before, and can share some wisdom and some advice. So you're always trying to learn and grow.
Sean, I know it was 5, 6 years ago, but when you interviewed Josh Allen here, like, what were some of the things where you were like, yeah, it's about him as a quarterback?
Oh man, you're testing my memory now. I just think overall the process with Josh. He just stood out and I'll go back to, if I could, to our visit with him even, right? He drove, I think it was like an hour and a half or 2 hours to make the appointment for us at dinner, because he had just flown back from somewhere else. And I think that act showed how important the process was to him. Which spoke volumes about who he was as a person at the time, right? Hey, being on time, going out of his way to be at that dinner as close to on time as he could, I think was a great start for him, because, again, this is as much about who these players are as people. Most of them, if not all of them, have this skill, right? It's more so for me who they are as people. And watching Josh go through that interview process, it wasn't easy, but just some of the intangibles that shone through, I thought were some of what separated him.
In your position, when you were trying to find that franchise guy, were there any certain traits that you were looking for when you sat down with him?
Someone that was going to match the fit and the culture of Buffalo. That was a big thing for me. You can see on film Josh could make the throws. He had the arm strength. He had the size. He had the measurables. As we sat there with him, it was mostly the intangibles as well as the mental. How quickly could he process information? I think that's certainly important when you're playing the quarterback position.
Speaking of fit and culture, what has Gabe Davis meant? He was a young guy who became a captain, and with his pending possible free agency, what would it mean to be able to get him back if that could work?
Yeah, Gabe was a great addition for our team. Just to be able to get a player in person, too, like that, years ago through the draft process, and watching Gabe on film over the years, and then watching him get into our building and develop and grow and have an impact on our team on the field, but also off the field as well. It's just, he's an incredible human being. He's done a phenomenal job for our team, and for him to be voted captain this year, I think really speaks volume of his impact on our team.
I think you've said in the past, like, there's a certain time where you kind of ramp things up, evaluating draft prospects.
Yep.
Do you, going into this process, take a look at your roster and prioritize any positions, like specifically on the defensive side, and somebody that just called the defense, maybe invest a little bit more time film-wise evaluating that?
Right. Well, I think working with the defense this past year, I've always been involved with the defense, but not to the extent I was this year. And so when I think the advantage I got out of that was I know these players. I know the meeting schedule. I know how this whole thing has worked. And so just having to the detail feel for the defensive players. Not going to have that with everyone, right? But I think that'll serve us well moving forward. And then just overall trying to do what's best. You have to know your own roster. That's important, right? You've got to know that in order for you to make the necessary adjustments moving forward or acquiring certain players, because it fits together like a puzzle. We've said that before. And knowing your own roster, that also affects, re-signing some of our own free agents if that's possible as well. So how you put whatever value you put on those players has got to be the right value, and that's just as important as anything.
You and Bill Belichick have spoken highly of each other through the years. How weird will it be to face them again right now?
Yeah, awfully weird. I mean, when you think of the New England Patriots, that's who you think of: Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. The two names that come to my mind, at least. And so they've had so much success there, both of them, over the years. And so it'll be new. Certainly wish Coach well, and I'm sure he'll be back at it before too long here. So it'll be a little bit different, yeah.
You mentioned some of the top safeties that you've coached over the years. When one of those guys is ready to move on, how challenging is it to not look for a replica of that guy in the next 6 days?
Everyone's different. I think you have to always embrace that each player is going to bring their own set of skills and intangibles to the equation, to the position. But having said that, I also think that when you've been able to be around a Brian Dawkins and coach a Brian Dawkins, you take that what you learn from that experience and say, hey, this is kind of the height, this is kind of the weight, this is kind of the skill set that I'm looking for in that position. And not that you're going to be able to totally replicate Brian Dawkins. I'm not suggesting that at all. But no different when you're able to coach a Luke Kuechly or a Thomas Davis and just you just learn from those experiences, and you're fortunate as a coach to be around players like that. And you're saying, okay, if I could take two out of the three main traits that each one of those guys had, so you're using that to your advantage to when you're looking and evaluating players to say, hey, I'd love to have that, because that is a critical factor at that position. So in the scouting world, you can evaluate a lot of different traits, right? But you try and prioritize what's important, the top three things at each position, because when you're going into it, you're not going to find, at least down lower in the rounds, you're not going to find all five that you want. So what are the three most important ones, or the two most important ones? And so I think that's important, that you know what's important to you as you're looking to acquire that skill.
Sean, when you talk about evaluating draft prospects and looking at their intangibles, is looking at body language or reading their body language in meetings or on tape, things like that, is that something that you consider or analyze when you're making those decisions?
It absolutely is. Yeah, it absolutely is. And I've got young kids that are playing sports now that their coaches I hear their coaches talking to them about body language, and I think that's huge because it's just as important as anything when you're out there. We talk a lot about it in our building, and you're through your body language, you're either adding to us or you're taking away from our environment, like minute to minute. And I'm judging some of your body languages right now. So some of you are bored, some of you are into this, some of you aren't, right? So. No, I think it's huge. Yeah.
Sean, at the end of the season, you talked about the inconsistencies on special teams. Just the decision to keep Smiley, and like when you evaluated things after some time, what did you pick up on and maybe changes to make there?
Well, there were certainly some things that we can do better from this past season, Elena, on special teams, and Coach and I talked about that, and I think you go back through this year, but then you also go back to Coach's first season where the numbers were better. And so through 2 seasons, we've had one that I thought was pretty good, and then one where I thought we could have done some things better there. And he embraces that, and so I know he's committed to getting us back to where we were. And so we've got to build it too to help him, right? We've got to make sure he's got what he needs as well. And so I know that's where the focus is right now. Well, I just felt like overall in year 2, overall in year 1, we didn't have the kind of the negative splash plays, I'll call them, right, like we did in year 2, starting with game 1. So we got to get that out of our game to begin with, and I think that's a good place to start. That's good? All right, thank you guys, appreciate it.